It was almost midnight when I realized he wasn't coming home again. The lasagna on the table had gone cold hours ago. Candles half burned, the clock ticking louder than my own heartbeat. He'd texted earlier, the usual. Working late again, don't wait up. I told myself not to take it personally. He was dedicated, ambitious, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. I was cleaning up the plates when I heard it, a soft ping from the kitchen counter. At first, I thought it was my phone, but when I looked over, it wasn't mine. It was his Apple Watch. He must have forgotten it when he rushed out this morning. Another ping, then another. My stomach twisted. I walked over, half curious, half uneasy. The screen lit up with a message preview. Just 6 words. Can't wait for tonight. My breath caught. For a second, I thought maybe it was a joke, some harmless group chat. But the name above the text wasn't one I recognized. It wasn't a coworker. It wasn't a friend. It was just a woman's name. I stood there frozen. The air felt heavy, like the entire house knew before I did. My hands trembled as I scrolled up, desperate for context, for anything that would make this make sense. But before I could read more, another message came in. Same hotel as last time? My chest went numb. The world blurred around me. He wasn't working late. He was with her. All those nights alone, all the excuses. It all snapped into place like a cruel puzzle finally completed. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just stared at the watch, at the proof glowing back at me. Then, with a calm I didn't even recognize, I typed back one simple line. Neither can I. And as I watched those 3 dots appear on the screen, his reply loading, I felt something shift inside me. But that one message would unravel every lie he'd ever told me. If you asked anyone a year ago, they'd say we were the perfect couple. College sweethearts, married right after graduation, bought a cozy house in the suburbs with a white fence and a golden retriever named Max. He was the dependable one. Charming, ambitious, the kind of man everyone's parents hoped their daughter would marry. I used to look at him and feel lucky, like I'd somehow won the relationship lottery. We built a life that looked perfect from the outside. I worked part-time at a small design studio while he climbed the corporate ladder. We took Sunday walks, hosted dinner parties, posted smiling photos online. I was the supportive wife, cheering him on from the sidelines, proud of his long hours and promotions. When people said, "You two are goals," I smiled and believed them. But somewhere along the way, the laughter faded. The late-night talks became quick nods and tired excuses. Date nights turned into rescheduled promises. He'd cancel plans with a soft kiss on the forehead and a muttered, "You know how it is, babe. Work's crazy right now." At first I accepted it. He was doing it for us after all. Then came the business trips, the endless urgent meetings, the phone that was always face down. I told myself it was just stress, that every marriage had rough patches. But the space between us wasn't just emotional, it was physical. Even when he was home, he wasn't really there. He'd zone out during dinner, scrolling through emails, eyes never meeting mine. I started to feel invisible in my own house. I'd lie awake at night next to him, staring at the ceiling, wondering when we'd stopped being partners and started being strangers. Friends would comment on how solid we were, how lucky I was to have him. I'd smile, nod, and change the subject before they could see the cracks forming behind the perfect picture. He always had an answer ready, smooth, practiced, comforting. "You're overthinking again. It's just a busy season. I'm doing this for us." And I believed him, because I wanted to. But I didn't realize he was building a double life behind that perfect smile. It started small, little things that didn't make sense but were easy to dismiss. He'd come home later and later, saying meetings ran long or the traffic was brutal. I wanted to believe him, but something about the way he rushed straight to the shower every night made my stomach twist. He'd barely say hello before disappearing into the bathroom, locking the door like he needed to wash away more than just the day. Then I noticed the clothes, new shirts, different cologne. He said his old one was discontinued, but the new scent was stronger, musky, unfamiliar. Once, when I did laundry, I found a receipt tucked in his pocket from an expensive boutique I'd never even heard of. The name on it wasn't his usual brand, and when I looked closer, there was a faint lipstick smudge on the edge. Bright red. I hadn't worn red lipstick in years. When I asked him about it, he laughed it off. "You're being ridiculous," he said, rolling his eyes. "Probably from a waitress handing me the bill." The way he said it made me feel small, like I was the one who had done something wrong for even asking. That's when the gaslighting began. Every question I asked became an attack. Every concern turned into, "You're too sensitive." He'd sigh, shake his head, and remind me how hard he was working to give us a good life. I started to second-guess myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe stress was making me paranoid. but my gut wouldn't quiet down. There were too many coincidences. He started taking his phone everywhere, even into the bathroom. He'd sleep with it under his pillow. Once, I walked into the room while he was texting, and he flipped the screen so fast it made my heart drop. I began keeping mental notes. Late-night calls, new clothes, mystery receipts, the faint scent of perfume that wasn't mine clinging to his jacket. It was like watching our marriage dissolve one tiny detail at a time. And deep down, I knew the truth was closing in on me. Still, nothing could have prepared me for the proof that would fall right into my hands. The watch kept lighting up, one message after another, each one slicing through me like glass. I knew I shouldn't look, but curiosity and heartbreak make dangerous allies. I tapped the screen and there it was, weeks of messages. A full conversation thread that felt like watching a movie of my own betrayal. Her name was Emily. The same Emily he'd mentioned once at dinner. Just part of my team, he'd said with that casual shrug that now made my skin crawl. I scrolled and my stomach turned. There were heart emojis, inside jokes, pictures from their work trips. One photo of him at a hotel, smiling, shirt unbuttoned. She'd captioned it, "Miss you already." Each message was more intimate than the last. "I wish I could wake up next to you. She doesn't understand me like you do. You're my escape." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. I felt sick, betrayed, humiliated, but also awake. Every working late, every just one more meeting, every time he called me paranoid, it all made sense now. He hadn't just been lying. He'd been rewriting reality while convincing me I was the crazy one. I kept scrolling, tears blurring the screen. Pet names he'd never used for me. Restaurants I'd wanted to try, but he'd said were too expensive. He'd taken her there instead. He'd even promised her things, vacations, a future, dreams he once sold to me. And suddenly, something inside me shifted. The sadness evaporated, replaced by something sharper. Rage. Cold, quiet, focused rage. I realized the gaslighting wasn't just manipulation, it was strategy. He'd been carefully covering his tracks, building this secret life while making me doubt my instincts. But here it was, glowing on the tiny screen he'd carelessly left behind. Proof. Undeniable. I wanted to scream, to call him, to drive to that hotel and drag the truth out of him. But I didn't. Instead, I placed the watch down carefully, like it was a ticking bomb. Because in that moment, I knew I was done being the fool in his story. But instead of confronting him right away, I decided to play the long game. I spent the whole day planning it like a ritual. His favorite pasta, the lemon tart he always pretended he didn't like but secretly loved, a vase of fresh peonies on the table. I put on the red dress he'd once said made him look at me like I was the only person in the room, the dress I hadn't worn in months. When he opened the door, his relief was visible. He hugged me like a man coming home to safety, unaware that I had already seen the thing that would change everything. He sat across from me with his phone face down in his pocket, smiling the easy smile that used to make me laugh. We made small talk about the weather, and a meeting he said had been rescheduled while he reached for his wine. The house smelled like garlic and butter, and the life I'd thought we'd built. I kept my voice steady because I wanted him to hear me. Halfway through the second course, I pushed my plate back and slid his Apple Watch across the table like a chess piece laid down with care. "You left this yesterday," I said, words quiet and deliberate. For a heartbeat he blinked, then laughed, a nervous, brittle sound that didn't reach his eyes. Color left his face the way a curtain falls when a scene ends. I opened the messages I had saved, the flirtatious lines, the plans, the photos at hotels he'd called work events. I read them aloud, one by one, like reading a script someone else had written about my life. "Can't wait for tonight," I said. Then the hotel suggestion, then the pet names I'd never been given. Each sentence landed with the weight of proof. He tried to talk his way out, voice cracking. "It's not what it looks like. I never meant to hurt you." He grasped for excuses, telling me I was misinterpreting everything. I watched him shrink under the weight of his own words, the man I'd loved reduced to stammering apologies and thin explanations. Anger and cold steadied me. I breathed and knew nothing I said would fix what he'd already done. I had evidence, a lawyer on standby, and options waiting. I smiled, measured, calm as winter. But he had no idea I already had a plan that would hit him harder than any confrontation ever could. A few weeks before that night, something inside me had already shifted. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was survival. But a quiet voice in my head told me to prepare for the worst. So one afternoon, while he was working late, I walked into a lawyer's office and sat down with shaking hands. I didn't want revenge then. I wanted clarity, proof. a plan. The attorney listened, calm and practiced, and told me what I already knew deep down. Men like him always slip up. I started documenting everything: screenshots, receipts, call logs, every unexplained expense, every business trip charge on our joint card. I opened a separate folder on my computer labeled insurance, and that folder became my secret weapon. The deeper I looked, the uglier it got. Hidden transfers, small at first, then larger, thousands moved into an account I'd never seen before. Not only was he cheating on me emotionally, he was preparing to cheat me financially too. It wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was a betrayal of trust, safety, everything I'd built. My lawyer's advice was simple. Stay calm. Don't tip him off. Let him hang himself with his own lies. So I did. I played the part perfectly. The worried wife, the patient partner, the woman who still believed his promises. While he was building his affair, I was building my escape. I stopped arguing. I smiled more. I even kissed him goodbye every morning like I used to. He thought I was softening, healing. But really, I was documenting, planning, stacking quiet victories one by one. He never suspected a thing. Every night he thought he was getting away with it. I was a step ahead, consulting with my lawyer, securing my accounts, and making sure that when the truth finally came out, I wouldn't just survive it. I'd win, and when the day came to expose him, he'd learned betrayal cuts both ways. His birthday came faster than I expected. I'd marked it on the calendar weeks ago, not as a celebration, but as the day the curtain would finally fall. He thought I was planning something special. He'd even joked about wanting a big surprise, grinning like the man I used to love. So I gave him exactly that, a surprise he'd never forget. I invited everyone, his family, his closest friends, a few of his co-workers, even his boss. He's been working so hard lately, I told them with a sweet smile. He deserves a night to feel appreciated. They all agreed. The reservations were set, the decorations perfect, the mood cheerful. He walked in that evening glowing with pride, arm around my waist, thinking I was the devoted wife who'd forgiven his distance. Dinner was perfect. Laughter, toasts, wine flowing freely. He was in his element, telling stories, cracking jokes, soaking up the admiration. Then came my turn. I stood up, glass in hand, and smiled. I just want to say a few words, I began, my voice steady but cold beneath the warmth. To the hardest working man I know, the man who's been pulling all-nighters, sacrificing so much. For love. The projector clicked on behind me. The slideshow started. At first, people thought it was a photo montage. Him at the office, traveling, smiling. But then came the screenshots, the texts, the selfies he'd sent from business trips, the receipts from hotel rooms and expensive dinners, each slide brighter, louder, more damning than the last. The room fell into stunned silence. His boss lowered his glass. His mother's face crumbled. His affair partner, sitting at the far end of the table, turned white and stormed out without a word. He just sat there, frozen, mouth open, no words left to twist. For once, he couldn't gaslight, couldn't lie. The evidence spoke louder than anything he could say. I ended my toast with a soft smile. Thank you all for coming, I said. Oh, and happy birthday, darling. Then I set an envelope beside his untouched dessert. The divorce papers. Signed, sealed, delivered. I walked out into the night, free for the first time in years. But even after destroying his reputation, karma wasn't finished with him yet. Word travels fast when scandal smells fresh. Within a week of that dinner, the fallout hit him like a tidal wave. His company launched an internal investigation after the photos and messages leaked through the office grapevine. Inappropriate conduct with a subordinate, the memo read. By Friday, his nameplate was gone from the door, and his corporate email was deactivated. The mistress, his so-called soulmate, vanished too. She didn't want to be tied to a man who'd lost everything. Friends stopped calling, neighbors stopped waving, and the man who once strutted through life with smug confidence was suddenly invisible. He tried to spin the story, of course, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd set him up. But no one bought it. The receipts didn't lie. While his world crumbled, mine began to rebuild itself. I rented a small apartment near the coast, bright and quiet, with morning sunlight that felt like forgiveness. I took up painting again, the hobby I'd abandoned years ago for his late nights and empty promises. I reconnected with my parents, spent weekends with friends, and learned what peace sounded like when it wasn't interrupted by suspicion. Every so often, I'd hear about him, looking for work, selling his car, moving back in with his mother. It used to make me angry. Now, it just made me grateful. He'd finally been forced to live in the reality he'd created. Then one night, months later, my phone lit up with his name. I stared at it, watched it ring and felt nothing. No hatred, no sadness, just closure. I let it ring until it stopped. Because sometimes silence is the loudest revenge. Looking back now, it's strange how love can make you ignore what's right in front of you. I used to think trust meant turning a blind eye, giving endless chances, forgiving before an apology ever came. But I've learned that trust isn't about pretending not to see the truth. It's about having the courage to face it when it hurts the most. You can love someone deeply and still not be blind. You can give your heart completely and still know when it's time to take it back. Because love built on lies isn't love at all. It's control, dressed up as devotion. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Don't wait for proof that destroys your peace. For so long, I thought leaving would mean losing everything. But the moment I walked away, I realized I'd gained something far more valuable. Myself, my strength, my sanity, my freedom. He lost his job, his reputation, and the version of me who once believed he could do no wrong. I lost my illusions. And that's the best loss I've ever had. Now when I wake up, I don't dread the silence. I welcome it. It's the sound of peace. The sound of a life rebuilt on truth instead of lies. He lost everything because he forgot the one person who truly had his back. And sometimes, betrayal isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your freedom.